Rome had shepherds. Rome had mud. Rome had 40 villages, clinging to 7 hills, above a river that flooded every spring. But what Rome did not yet have was a king. And without a king, there was no order. Without order, there was no city. And without a city, there was no Rome. What happened next was not glorious. It was not divine. It was brutal and political and deeply, unmistakably human. Before Rome had a king, it had a legend. And like all legends, it begins with a woman who had no power, a man who wanted too much, and 2 children who were never supposed to survive. The city of Alba Longa sat in the hills above Latium. It was the mother city, older than Rome, more powerful, the seat of the Latin Federation, and its king was a man named Numitor. Good, by most accounts. Careful, a man who understood that power shared is power preserved. Numitor had a brother. His name was Amulius, and Amulius wanted the throne. In the ancient world, wanting the throne and taking the throne were separated by a single act of nerve. Amulius had the nerve. He deposed his brother, murdered Numitor's sons so no male heir could challenge him. And then, to neutralize the one remaining threat, he forced Numitor's daughter, Rhea Silvia, to become a Vestal virgin, a priestess sworn to chastity. If she could not have children, she could not produce an heir. The usurper's throne would be safe. But the plan failed, because plans built on silencing women rarely survive contact with the women themselves. Rhea Silvia became pregnant. The Roman historian Livy, writing centuries later, noted with characteristic Roman pragmatism that the father was said to be Mars, god of war. Whether that was true, or whether it was a story invented to protect a frightened young woman from execution, we cannot know. What we know is this: she gave birth to twin sons, and Amulius ordered them drowned in the Tiber. The servants tasked with drowning the twins could not bring themselves to do it. Instead, they set the basket adrift on the flooding Tiber. The river was swollen with spring rain. It carried the twins downstream, caught them in the roots of a fig tree on the bank, and left them there, crying, wet, abandoned, and alive. What found them next became the most iconic image in Roman history, a she-wolf nursing 2 human infants, as though they were her own cubs. A shepherd named Faustulus found them. He brought them home to his wife, and they raised the boys as their own, Romulus and Remus. They grew up strong, wild, and dangerous. They led raids. They fought. They gathered followers. They were, in every way, the sons of a war god, long before they knew it. And then one day, Faustulus told them the truth, where they came from, who their mother was, what had been done to her, and 2 young men with nothing became 2 young men with a reason. They marched on Alba Longa. They killed Amulius. They restored Numitor to the throne. It was swift and decisive and righteous, the kind of violent justice that makes for excellent founding myths. And then, with their grandfather restored, with their enemy dead, with their birth story confirmed, they stood at a crossroads. They could have stayed. Inherited Alba Longa eventually, ruled comfortably. But they didn't. They looked south, toward the hills, toward the place where the wolf had found them, and they decided to build something new. And here is where the myth fractures, because the founding of Rome, even in its own legend, begins not with glory, but with a quarrel. Romulus wanted to build on the Palatine Hill. Remus preferred the Aventine. They agreed to settle it through augury, reading omens in the flight of birds. Remus saw 6 vultures first. Romulus saw 12. But Remus had seen his birds earlier, which mattered more, the number or the timing. The argument grew. The walls were going up, and Remus, mocking his brother, leaped over the half-finished wall. What happened next, Roman historians recorded with uncomfortable matter-of-factness. Romulus killed his brother. Some accounts say it was rage, others say it was ceremonial, that Romulus declared anyone who crossed Rome's walls would meet the same fate. Whatever the reason, whatever the manner, Rome's first act of power was the murder of a twin. By his twin. The city was named after the one who survived, and the one who died was buried without ceremony, without monument, without a single street named in his honor. Romulus became Rome's first king, and he immediately faced the problem that would define Rome for the next 1,000 years. Not enough people. A city needs citizens. Citizens need families. Families need women. Romulus solved this with characteristic Roman bluntness. He declared Rome an asylum, a sanctuary for the outcast, the runaway, the refugee, the escaped slave, the convicted criminal. Come to Rome, and Rome will protect you, the city filled with men, desperate, rootless, dangerous men, but still, no women. The Sabine people lived in the hills nearby. They had women. They also had a reasonable suspicion that their new neighbors, a city built from runaways and outcasts, were not ideal marriage prospects. Every diplomatic approach Romulus made was refused, and so, with the pragmatic ruthlessness that would become Rome's signature, he devised a plan. He invited the Sabines to a festival, a great celebration. The Sabines came, men, women, children, entire families. The feasting began, and then, at a signal, the Romans seized the Sabine women. History calls it the rape of the Sabine women. But the ancient accounts are complicated. Romulus promised the women full rights, honored marriages, and citizenship. He was not, by the standards of the ancient world, offering them nothing. He was offering them Rome. Whether that was comfort or insult depended entirely on who was being asked. What followed was war. The Sabine men regrouped, attacked, and then, in one of history's stranger plot twists, the Sabine women themselves intervened. They ran between the two armies. They refused to let their fathers kill their new husbands. The war ended. The Sabines and Romans merged. Their king, Titus Tatius, ruled alongside Romulus for a time. Rome absorbed its enemy, made them citizens, made their culture, Roman culture. It was the first time Rome did what it would do 1,000 more times across 1,000 more years: take the people it had fought and make them part of itself. This was not generosity. This was strategy. Rome understood, before it had the words for it, that an empire is not built by defeating enemies. It is built by converting them. Romulus ruled for decades. He built Rome's first senate, 100 elders called the patres, the fathers. He established the legions. He created the framework of Roman law. And then one day, during a military review on the Campus Martius, a storm came. When the clouds cleared, Romulus was gone. The official story, Mars had taken his son back. Romulus had ascended, becoming the divine Quirinus. The unofficial story, whispered by historians for centuries after, was that the senators had torn him apart. It doesn't matter which is true. What matters is what Rome did with both of them. They told the divine story in public. They whispered the political one in private. And in doing so, they established something that would define Roman power for centuries. Rome now needed a second king. And the choice was remarkable. They didn't choose a Roman. They chose Numa Pompilius, a Sabine, a man known not for military conquest, but for wisdom, philosophy, and piety. Numa spent his reign not fighting wars, but building institutions. He created the Roman calendar. He established the priesthoods. He built the Temple of Janus, whose open doors signaled war, and whose closed doors signaled peace. In 43 years of reign, the doors of Janus were closed. Rome was at peace. But peace never lasts in Rome. After Numa came Tullus Hostilius, everything Numa was not. A warrior king, aggressive, expansionist, hungry. He destroyed Alba Longa, Rome's mother city, absorbing its people into Rome. The act was symbolic and brutal in equal measure. Rome was killing its own parent, and in doing so, announcing to the world that it had outgrown the need for one. The seventh and final king of Rome was Tarquinius Superbus, Tarquin the Proud. He was Etruscan, and he was everything the Romans would come to hate about kings. He ruled by terror. He murdered his predecessor. He bypassed the Senate. He taxed without consent. He used Roman citizens as forced labor. He was brilliant and cruel and completely unconcerned with the limits of his power. And then, his son committed an act so monstrous, so unforgivable, that it ignited something Rome had been building toward for 200 years. His son raped a noble woman named Lucretia. She was the wife of a Roman aristocrat. She was, by every account, a woman of exceptional virtue and dignity. After it happened, she summoned her father and her husband, told them what had been done, and made them swear an oath of vengeance. Then she took her own life, the act of a woman who understood that, in the world she lived in, this was the only form of power left to her. Rome heard what happened, and Rome erupted. A man named Lucius Junius Brutus, who had spent years hiding his intelligence behind a mask of foolishness to survive Tarquin's court, took Lucretia's body into the forum. He held up the knife. He called the people to witness. He named what had been done, and Rome, tired, humiliated, furious, rose. Tarquin and his family were expelled. The monarchy was abolished. And in its place, Rome created something the world had barely dared imagine: a republic, ruled not by one man, but by elected magistrates, checked by law, accountable to the people. The kings were gone. Rome was just beginning. Next week on Vault of Echoes, the Republic cracks. Caesar stands at the Rubicon, an army at his back, the law before him, and a decision that will end one world and begin another. Subscribe, and remember what the world forgot.